4, 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to Racing World, brought to you by Perspective Group. It's your motorsport podcast show in conjunction with Race Control Magazine.
Well, hi there once again, and welcome to another edition of Racing World, your motorsport podcast show. And boy, don't these days go quick between one show and another show. But, you know, we've always said that we would commit to this and deliver shows on a weekly basis, and that's what we're intending to do. So this week, of course, the focus is around Spa F1, and my good mate Bob McMurray will be joining me very shortly. A lot happened this week in the world of motorsport once again. Big weekend for USF 2000 and Indy Pro at New Jersey. Great win for Hunter McElrea, and we'll talk about that shortly as well. But, you know, fantastic to see him on the podium every race, and it certainly brought his championship chances alive. So wishing Hunter all the very best as he gets to the closing stages of the Indy Pro Series for this year. As I said, a lot to talk about Spa. So what better thing to do than get straight into it with my mate, Bob McMurray. Well, here we are. We're back in New Zealand, but I'm still separated from my best friend. He's down there at his house. I'm in mine. We're in lockdown. It's kind of like nothing's changed, Bob.
No, nothing's changed at all much. And strange, nothing has much changed from the weekend. I'm not sure when people are going to see this, but as of we're recording it on a Tuesday, David, I'm looking outside and it looks exactly the same as Spa looked at the weekend. We have floods. I have a river at the back of my place, which has burst its banks, and we are totally flooded out there. We're flooded out the front where there's a big pond. We're flooded in the paddocks. I don't know what they were complaining about. All this rain is okay. That's why it's green here and green in Spa. Probably.
Strange enough, me and my wife were watching the American news last night. We were watching about the hurricane, and yet it feels like we're about to have a hurricane up here. So we'll call it even. But let's get to it. Spa. So it started on a Friday and it kind of finished on a Sunday. But what happened in between was vastly different to what we were expecting, really.
Yeah, nobody came out of that looking good. Look, the bottom line is weather, right? That's all there is to it. It was weather. And it's not as if Spa is not famous for throwing things up that are unexpected in the weather department. I remember in 1998, there was that huge accident just after La Source at the beginning, yes. Which I think took out 12 cars or something like that. So, you know, that's a big deal there. It's not unusual for, well, it is unusual, but it's not unprecedented that half points were awarded to races. It's happened 6 or 7 times. In fact, a championship has been won by half a point, and that was between Alain Prost and Niki Lauda in 1984, when they were both driving for McLaren. And that was decided at Portugal. 1985 at Spa, the race was postponed until later in the year because the track broke up because it was too hot. And it all broke up a la Source, and we had to go back at the end of the year. So, you know, these things happen, force majeure and all sorts of things. What perhaps grates with a lot of people, and I thoroughly agree, and I don't think they can get away with all the bull that's going on. This race was started. It has got a major, what's the word? It leans towards the commercialism of Formula One, in that they wanted to get 2 laps in, which means it could be a race, which means people get half points, which means all sorts of contractual things come into it. Doesn't matter how much they deny it. Doesn't matter how much everybody was following the rules and all sorts of things. The taste is left in the mouth, in that the only reason they went out for the 2 or 3 laps or whatever it was and classified as a race is to get over the fact that it would have been a non-race. That doesn't do anything for the spectators. Spectators is another thing. You take your chances when you go to a meeting, I think, honestly, for any sporting event. If you can get your money back, fine. But that sporting event was on for 3 days, and there was only 1 day that was rained off, effectively. They saw action. So how do you give people their money back for not seeing one race? It's a very difficult situation, which does not reflect well on anybody. It certainly doesn't reflect well on having a podium ceremony with people getting half points. I don't think that was the right thing to do. It was kind of rubbing it in the faces of everybody, you know, saying, oh, we have to do this for television, or we have to do this. It didn't have to do it. So, yeah, what's going to come of it? I don't know. Rule changes? Okay, what are you going to do? Change the rules for weather? You can't. The weather's the weather. You're going to change the rules to have it on the next day? Well, don't forget the next day, everybody, has got things happening the next day. The crowd have got things happening. You won't get the crowd back, so you're still going to have to give people money. They've got to go to work.
That was a thing that I thought of as soon as people started saying, "Oh, well, you come back on Monday." Yes, okay. In the States, NASCAR do it. So I know that we'll cop some criticism, or I will here by saying that, but NASCAR do it. But it's in their contingency plan right from the word go. Formula One, however, if you look at, say, this week's a great example. You're going from Belgium to the Netherlands for a race at Zandvoort. When you consider the amount of freight that logistically has to move on a back-to-back weekend, can you do that if you have a race on Monday? It's just so tight.
Yes, you can, because they go from Portugal to Monaco or something like that, much further distances when they've got it planned for. And after all, they're only going up the road. You could say it's not that very far away from there. So yes, logistically they could have done it. Not easy at all. But there's all the other logistics that go with it, the engine, all sorts of things are around it. But the fact is that you would get some people coming to the race to see it on a Monday, some people not coming because they couldn't work, they had to work. There's all sorts of things around it. The race itself, can they open those roads on a Monday? They probably only got it locked off for the weekend because all of it is public road, don't forget. So, it doesn't reflect well on anybody. And it doesn't reflect well on the fact that you and me, are one of 10,000 people with 25,000 opinions on what should have, could have, might have happened. But it just doesn't reflect well on Formula One, that that two-lap thing was not right. As simple as that. They shouldn't have been out there at all.
The thing we do know, however, great lap from George Russell in qualifying. That you can't.
Sure. Yeah, what a wonderful thing to do. It was a good team lap as well, in that they put those cars on intermediate when everybody else was dodging down on wets. Doesn't take anything away from him, nor Latifi, incidentally.
No.
Latifi did a pretty good lap. And should you be rewarded for by having points for qualifying, which is what they've been? Well, no, you shouldn't, because it's not in the rules. I think maybe you should in normal racing, but it just doesn't particularly reflect well, and all the vehemence that's come out. I understand people's annoyance at Lewis Hamilton kind of putting himself out there as a spokesman for this, a spokesman for that, and he does. But the fact is, people, he is asked questions as a world champion, multiple world champion, as a big spokesman, any multiple world champion, and he gives his opinion. That's all there is to it.
The same applies to Vettel. Vettel was very quick to come out, and I support them for saying that, because they're thinking of. I kind of compared it a little bit with some of the Lauda era, whereby this just isn't safe enough. So listen to me. I am a driver. It's my bum that's sitting in the car. So forget the commercial value, which is, kind of what Nicky did years and years ago. And there is a point where somewhere along the line that has to take over. And sure, we had 2 laps under a safety car, which then was deemed a race, but it's kind of, these things need looking at, don't they?
Sure they do. And as many people say, the throttle, including Martin Brundle, the throttle goes both ways. You start the race. If you don't want to go fast enough, come in and stop. People have done that before. Alan Prost has done it in Australia. Niki Lauda did it when he effectively lost the championship in 76, James Hunt. And also Bernie Ecclestone says, used to say, well, nobody's forcing them to race. The race is there. If you want to go and take part, you take part. And, they can go as slow as they want. But that's not the point. It was a race deemed to be a race, and it wasn't a race. I don't care what anybody says. There was no race there at all. No race.
The other interesting thing that I thought was quite interesting, seeing as we've touched on Lewis, he was very quick to say, because of the contract negotiation thing, yet again between Bottas and Russell for this second seat at Mercedes next year, he's very quick to say, this doesn't change my preference to having Valtteri as my teammate in 2022.
Well, going on to that, he knows exactly what he's dealing with there, instead of getting a new driver in the team where he doesn't know what he's dealing with. Well, that's understandable.
Yeah, it's right. And he has that. It's no different than Verstappen saying, I don't want this person or I want this person, you know, or Vettel in years gone by, or Senna or anyone, you know.
He stopped various people going into the team because he wanted other people. So that's all part of it. I mean, just knock it off with. I mean, I'm not in love with Lewis Hamilton or anything. Let's just knock it off, people, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
If you don't want his opinion, then don't listen to his opinion. If he's asked for it, he's going to give it. And he is, despite what everybody says, a required spokesman for the sport as a driver, because he says what he says. He's not faceless, and that's a good thing. No. The whole weekend, there was a bit of a farce. I mean, there were other good things about it. The Formula 3 races were good. It's a shame on the W Series events that an accident happened just after the start there. I've only seen recordings of it. I didn't see the race.
Pretty big.
I mean, it's just a shame for Spa, because it is one of those. It's just an iconic track, and of course, all the questions are coming up now about the validity of having the Eau Rouge and complex, if you like. Shouldn't that be altered for car? No, it shouldn't be altered. It should not be altered. You're not racing in cotton wool, as Toto Wolff says. You're racing on proper racetracks, and this is a proper racetrack. I mean, the Radillon part up there, yes, it's dangerous. Once again, you got a throttle that doesn't need to go flat to the floor.
And we're not talking a Paul Ricard type circuit, you know. This is the thing, you know, and it's the great thing about it, and that's the mixture of circuits that you come across. And speaking of circuits, this week we moved back to Zandvoort for the first time in yonks. I watched a documentary actually online a couple of days ago, because we're in lockdown and I had nothing else to do, about the circuit designer that has built Zandvoort. And one of his things that he said in it was, I want to make this kind of scary for the driver to drive at. And I thought, well, that's a circuit then that goes outside those windows, doesn't it? Of, you know, there's some skill required.
I think the circuit he was talking about, I've forgotten his name, John Hugenholtz, was it?
Yeah, something like that,
Hugenholtz, something like that.
Yeah, something Dutch.
The circuit he designed is not very similar to the circuit they're going to race on now. The circuit he designed went way back in the dunes, and it was a fantastic circuit. It really was. Dangerous, though. It was dangerous. I mean, you know, various people have died there, and there's been a couple of well-publicized accidents over the last generations that happened there. But nonetheless, it's an amazing track. I mean, if people don't know it or they haven't seen it, when we used to be there, if you got up on top of the pits, you could actually see the sea. You know, there was the back of the pits, a little bit of waste ground, a road, and the beach. And the beach is fantastic, but by golly, it gets cold there. You don't do a lot of windsurfing there by mistake. It is the North Sea. So all sorts of weather could happen there. It either used to rain and go crazy there, or there was sand all over the track. Whether they've cured that, I don't know. Yeah. The Zandvoort is certainly was a worthy track to be on. It remains to be seen what it's like for them to race on this time. So,
if Verstappen,
Fritz and mayonnaise at the end of the paddock, but I bet that place isn't there anymore.
If Verstappen ever needed some motivation, a home crowd is certainly going to help him right now. That's for sure in the chase for the championship.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure Lando Norris will be grateful for the many thousands of orange shirts in the as well, as we keep saying. As will Daniel Ricciardo, who actually came out of the weekend probably looking better than most people because he kept his fourth place in qualifying, which was a good effort anyway. So yeah, Danny Rick needs to get a bit going there. But I'm looking forward to Zandvoort as a race. I think it's going to be
me too.
Hopefully the weather and everything's all right.
And Red Bull obviously confirming Sergio now for another year. So, and then Christian coming out saying that, you know, we're very fond of Alex Albon. We want to find Alex Albon a seat, And, oh, by the way, we've signed Sergio for another year.
Yeah. And didn't he do well at the weekend? Yeah. So, he didn't get anywhere near Max in qualifying, and then he put the car in the wall. You know,
great job by the team to get that ready.
Yeah, and apparently they weren't allowed to race it, and then they were allowed to race it. Didn't happen anyway, but still, we'll see. One of the other things happened over the weekend, though, I've got to say, in contrast to all that, was the MotoGP at Silverstone. What a fantastic, if you get a chance to watch it on TV, what a fantastic race that was. And MotoGP, very quickly, I'm not going to go through it much, is just in such a good place at the moment. It's a little bit like IndyCar. In the last, I wrote it down here somewhere. There were 6 different manufacturers in the top 6 racing for the weekend. 7 riders have won in the first 12 races. And last year, 9 riders won during 2020. That is so competitive, that series at the moment, as is 3 and 2. At the same time as the old guard are sort of a little bit like IndyCar again, Valentino Rossi, maybe Marc Marquez. Those guys are just, they're having trouble. Well, I mean, Rossi is retiring anyway, but Marc Marquez is still not back up to Marc Marquez yet. So, yeah, that was such a good kind of flipping between the two in a lot over the weekend between the two Formula One and MotoGP. MotoGP, great thing. Really good.
You got me started on IndyCar, so we'll just do a little rant and a little rave for a while. So big things coming out of the weekend. Obviously, USF 2000 ran in the New Jersey area. Peter Vodonovich and Billy Fraser doing pretty well there. Billy had a 9th, which was great. But the big one, of course, Indy Pro, Hunter McElrea on the podium every day and then winning the last race by 12.5 seconds. So big margin. It's put Hunter back to 3rd in the championship now. And we're in the closing stages because the season's been shortened up. So we need him, and I'm sure he feels the same, and so does his dad. We need him to go well at the next one because there's a lot on the line for Hunter. And as I alluded to in our last show, very good chance that we'll see him in an Indy Lights car next year. Can't announce the team yet. I do know it, but let's just get all the financials out of the way. But we wish Hunter the best. It was a great performance from him over the weekend, and worthy of where he is. And then within the rest of the IndyCar thing, well, the driver movement thing, it's still on. So Romain Grosjean, almost certainly now, subject to the signing of the contract, will drive an Andretti Autosport car next year, the DHL number 28, replacing Ryan Hunter-Reay. Where's Ryan go? Got no idea.
He may not go anywhere, may he? Because there's not a great clamour for anybody to sign him up at the moment, is there?
No.
I mean, I would imagine the Foyt thing is full. All the lesser teams, if you like, they're looking pretty settled, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. So the other thing at Andretti's is the Hinchcliffe seat was almost certainly up for grabs as well. There's talk of a young driver out of Indy Lights, Francesco De Velde, who may get in there. Evidently comes with lots of money, so I'm sure that will help. Whether that's a fostering of talent within Andretti Autosport, time will tell. But money certainly doesn't matter, really, does it? If you've got it, then Michael will take it. So, but the big thing with Grosjean, when this contract is finally signed, is he's confirmed that he will drive the whole season. So that includes the ovals.
And why shouldn't he? Look, we didn't have a bad performance of the last, his first oval, did he?
No.
Only a couple of weeks ago.
And then just today, and I've actually just finished watching it, and we've got some overlay of it here. Jimmie Johnson tested at the Texas Motor Speedway on the oval, and he's committing to a greater oval campaign next year, including the 500 with Ganassi again. So, these guys are all stepping up to the plate a little bit. And stepping up to the plate is exactly what Jimmie Johnson did just this morning, turning laps at Texas Motor Speedway. And this is what he had to say straight after that session.
I need to pretend as if I've never been here before, and then after a lot of laps, maybe pull a few small things from my NASCAR days to apply to the IndyCar. And ironically, the way you use the banking to help support the race car is much more critical in an IndyCar than it is a Cup car. And the line is a bit more forgiving in the Cup car as a result. There was a point in time where the speeds were so high that drivers couldn't stay conscious driving around this track. So it has had me alarmed. And to know that I could come here and test and to experience it as a driver was important for me. Let's go to the tough one. It's one thing by myself, and I feel I can control my environment. And I'm very thankful that I'm able to go out here and do it and see. But the way IndyCar has advanced their safety, and certainly what the tracks have done to increase the safety, my concerns are much less, and that's why we're here today. Now that my concerns are at a certain point, now it's time to get in the car and see what my point of view is from there.
Alongside Jimmie at the test was driver coach Dario Franchitti, and Dario had plenty to say as well.
If I said to you, it would be like a person that plays cricket plays for in the English team or whatever, it's got a bat, it's got a ball. Then going and playing baseball, it's got a bat, it's got a ball. Everything else is different, and that's I think that's what the difference between a stock car and an Indy car. Everything you learn on the way up, and everything you learn when you're at the top in either of those fields, doesn't prepare you in any way to do the other. In fact, it hurts you. So it's a challenging thing that Jimmie's doing, as I say, but he's done very well so far.
We talked to Alex Albon before. He has done a seat fit at Dale Coyne, I know that. So, and Grosjean has recommended him to Dale Coyne, and one of the things that Dale Coyne came out with the other day, saying he highly respected what Grosjean was telling him and took that on board. So maybe we'll still see Albon in an IndyCar, considering those Red Bull options are becoming limited. So that'll be interesting.
Well, I think that would give Albon and Red Bull a better future in many ways, because it would allow Red Bull, Helmut Marko, to keep Red Bull with Albon, but to put him in a whole different series. And It would remove him from the equation over here if they don't really want him in Formula One anymore, because I'm sure if he's not ready this year and Perez has taken the situation, he's not going to be ready the next year. And that also, if you take the steps down, it might help the likes of Liam Lawson a little bit, because it takes one of his competitors, once again, if you like, for a Formula One seat out of the equation. So I can see all that happening. I really can, and it would be quite a good thing.
A little bit of Red Bull money on the side of the car mightn't go astray either, and certainly help a team like Dale Coyne out. So
with Jimmie Johnson, I mean, you would think he'd be quite used to ovals, wouldn't you? To be honest.
Yeah, just driving a different type of car now. So, but yeah, it's successful test at Texas today, so it's a big thing. And then the teams obviously head to the West Coast for these final three races back to back. The last one hurt Dixon without a doubt. Still in the game. There's 5 of them that are in the game mathematically. That may change after Portland. My biggest concern is over Long Beach at the moment. There's a lot of COVID restrictions coming into play within the greater Los Angeles area. I'd hate to see them lose another event, just like we're seeing a slight shuffle in the calendar in Formula One, which Formula One are now finally acknowledging it won't be the full season. It would hurt IndyCar right now if they were to lose Long Beach. The hardest part, of course, with Long Beach is that it's a street race. But, time will tell. But it's 3 weekends back-to-back, chase for the championship, 5 of them in the equation. One of them's going to win. Yeah,
but there's only 10 points between the top 3 when you look at it. More or less 10 points. I'm not saying exactly 10 points.
Yeah.
But then there's a decent-sized gap back to Scott Dixon. So he's the one that's really got to score points in a hurry in the next couple of races to get up there.
He needs the landscape to change slightly back in his corner, really. But it's great, and as you well know, because you've experienced it with me, it'll mean that the IndyCar Championship goes right to the wire again. Just like you were saying with MotoGP, this is what we as fans of the sport. We live for this, because this is why we follow it for a whole season, isn't it? And it's the best scenario possible for any category. So really looking forward to seeing how that plays itself out. If one of the young guns, Pato O'Ward or Alex Plough, is to win the championship, very well deserved. If Newgarden wins the championship, very calculated drive in the last quarter of the season. That's done that. That's for sure.
Yeah. And staying in America. And going back a little bit, Jacob Douglas, his first weekend in the US, racing in the West Coast Formula 4 Pro, whatever. They got some wonderful names, haven't they? But anyways, in Formula 4 there, his first weekend, he got himself 2 podiums and qualified, I think, seconds, but he got a second and a third over the weekend. I think that's pretty good. Unfortunately, it seems, and I haven't caught up with it properly yet, the last race was abandoned because of a huge accident in some way. I don't know. Or it was stopped early because of a big accident, and he was not involved in that. So Jacob Douglas, he's on the conveyor belt of Kiwi motorsport drivers, isn't he? And he's a good kid. Good kid. I've seen him testing in the Toyota Racing Series car at Hampton Downs. He's got his head in the right place with some good people around him. So good on Jacob Douglas. We'll be reading a bit more about him, I'm sure, in America in the next few weeks.
Well, I think we've pretty much done our dash. I've got to let you get outside and make sandbags before your house gets flooded, and I've got to tie a few things down before they blow away. Great to be home, almost close to you, getting closer all the time, you might say.
Yeah, we're in the same northern part of the northern part. Yeah, it's going to be a while, I think, David, what with, with the COVID thing going on, but at least we've got telly. We've got, what's IndyCar is in 2 weeks' time, isn't it now? More or less, as we're saying this, or the first race, and we've got Formula One this weekend.
Yeah.
So, and NASCAR is always there. They've just finished, incidentally, they've just finished their regular season, and they now have the people locked in for the various shootouts and the playoffs and stuff like that. So that's going to get pretty good. I don't know if you saw the last race. It was a NASCAR race in that it was in that there were cars almost upside down. What's new in NASCAR? So yeah, there's a bit to watch on TV. Spark Sport, good on Spark Sport for keeping it all going as well.
Yeah, well, there's lots of things ahead, and of course, if people are bored, you can always watch all the back issues of Racing World on YouTube. How about that?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
There's a go. So don't forget to like and share and subscribe, and then you can watch the whole damn lot. That's what we say. But anyway, Bob, pleasure to be with you once again. We'll obviously talk next week after Zandvoort. I'm really looking forward to that. I think it'll be great. Be good to see it with crowd as well, which will be a great thing, and we can do the big debrief on it next week.
It will be. Yeah, from my point of view, it's going to be a race that brings back a huge number of memories, and mostly good, but a huge number of memories. It's one of those tracks they should be going back to. James Hunt versus Mario Andretti on Tarzan corner, the first corner. Anyway, I'll go on about that for ages. We're done.
Well, until next week, take care. Get out those sandbags and look after yourself. And, of course, stay COVID safe if you're living in New Zealand or anywhere in the world, that's for sure. Well, that wraps up another Racing World show. Certainly, Formula One was the focus. Not too long now till we get to this very pointy end of IndyCar. Great to have Bob back on the show talking about F1. Zandvoort's going to be fantastic. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to bringing you another show next week. Don't forget, you can check out our Facebook page where we're updating motorsport content, particularly IndyCar, on a daily basis. And, of course, like, share and subscribe us here on YouTube. Really, really value your attention and your contributions to the show, the feedback that we're getting from you. It's just fantastic, and makes it all worthwhile. So until next week, stay very COVID safe out there. As I've said many times recently, it's a very scary place right now, so be safe. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll catch you again next week on Racing World.